I've got with me a phone that probably doesn't need an intro. It's getting a lot of hype because it's the world's first to have a 108 megapixel camera in it. This is, of course, Xiaomi's Mi Note 10, a promising looking phone that has a build that looks very similar to me to, say, a Huawei P30 Pro. It's got a 5x optical camera on the rear, one of 5 cameras in total, 2x optical, an ultra wide, the main sensor, a 2 megapixel macro sensor, and a 32 megapixel front-facing camera. So that's a whole lot of megapixels all in one phone with an AMOLED screen. It's powered by the Snapdragon 730G. So let's check it out. So this is what you'll find in the box. We've got a 30-watt charger that will charge this massive 5,260 milliamp hour battery in just 1 hour and 5 minutes. So that is really, really quick. We've got a TPU case as well. So this has a raised lip around it to protect the camera lens. And then you get a user guide and a warranty card there, as well as a SIM tray tool. The Mi Note 10 is 210 grams, and it also is 9.8 millimeters thick. So it's a heavy phone and a thick phone as well, and almost 11 millimeters if you count the camera bump. So we've got a 6.47-inch curved AMOLED screen on the Mi Note 10, and the chin at the bottom is actually a little bit smaller, as you can see here, than my Huawei P30 Pro, which is on the left. Now both of these phones look very, very similar. And up the top, we've both got the water drop notch and 32 megapixel cameras. And the similarities to, say, a Huawei phone, they don't stop there with just the front display. It also extends out to where they have placed the Xiaomi logo right here, their name, exactly where Huawei puts it, where the camera is, and then of course the rear curved screen with Gorilla Glass 5, front and back. And even as you'll see here, that the frame around the outside is painted with a matte grayish, almost black color, super similar to the Huawei when you have a look at them. Really, really, really similar designs, squared off top and bottom. So on the Xiaomi, up top here, we do have an IR transmitter, secondary mic, the 2 antenna lines, and our volume buttons as well in the exact same place as the Huawei P30 Pro. And then the bottom of the phone, Type-C port there, so this doesn't support VO out, sadly. I wish they would do that, even if it was just display mirroring, would be good. And we've got 3.5mm headphone jack, the 2 antenna lines there, and a single loudspeaker, so there are no dual loudspeakers with this phone. The top bezel is very slim. Our earpiece up the top is actually off-centered a little bit, more to the left as you can see, and there's no status LED on this mobile whatsoever. Now the SIM tray is metal reinforced. It takes just 2 nano SIMs. There is a rubber gasket around there to help keep out dust and water as well, but there's no official IP rating with this phone. So the build overall is excellent. This is right up there with, say, flagship phones, and just like my P30 Pro, it's a top quality build that they've gone with here. All glass, so yes, it is very slippery, and it's a little heavy, okay, at the 212 grams or so. So face unlocking, you can see, works well. The fingerprint reader, they've moved it actually up here a little bit, but I've got no problems tapping it. I do find that it seems to be a little bit slow at times. So I'll just demonstrate that again. Okay, here it seems to be working all right, but I do believe they could optimize that further via software. Xiaomi's done a really good job with the display with this one, with the calibration. You can see the gamma is 2.2, almost 2.1, but it's pretty much spot on. This is really good. Now I wanted to keep it on the screen to point this out. You see with the curved edges with this AMOLED panel that it does have that problem, okay? The colors are gonna shift out. You're getting the shadowing on the edges. You can see when I move it slightly, it will vary. So when you look at it that way, you can't see it now, and you're just seeing it just on the top. Now that's gonna happen with all of these curved displays, but I noticed it's actually a little bit worse than my Huawei P30 Pro in that regard. Now with the settings, you get a lot of different options, as I will just show you right now here with the display, and this is pretty much standard. Now dark mode's on there, okay, if you're into that, you want it. It's good for eye strain, of course, and it also saves battery. You can schedule it, and then we've got our typical scaling modes, text size, reading mode is there as well. So very good display in this, and the maximum brightness I measured to be just over 620 nits. So onto the ROM performance, some benchmarks and little tests I like to run. So the performance of this ROM I found is pretty good, okay? It's now on MIUI 11. For some reason we don't have Android 10 out of the box, which I was half expecting with the new, of course, MIUI, but no. They've got Android 9 here still, so hopefully we're going to see an update of that. With recent apps, I've noticed that sometimes you will see just some animations lagging a little bit. So obviously some optimization and tweaking is needed on Xiaomi's behalf, and that should be coming through with some firmware updates there. Task Manager, closing apps doesn't seem too aggressive. In fact, to me, it seems better than MIUI 10. They've eased up a little bit, and this, of course, is to help with battery life, so that's why they close things. You sometimes have to reload apps. So when you go into, for example, Gallery, I've noticed this is when you can sometimes just see just loading apps up and swapping in between, where you will notice those noticeable just little lags there that do pop up. But overall, the performance is, I think, for what the chipset is acceptable. It is good. Just load up Twitter here and show you Twitter scrolling. And of course, that needs to just start loading in all of those images and swipe up there. That animation was very smooth there, but it's not consistent. So out of the box, you get 112 gigabytes free. I'm on the latest version of MIUI 11 here, and you do have some settings here for the ambient display. I wanted to show you in case people were asking about this. Raise to wake is there as well, of course. And you get a lot of this bloatware on first use. You can see this is all I had on there. A lot of crap that they have installed here, Xiaomi. In fact, over 1 gigabyte worth of bloatware and crap. So we don't need this, and we certainly do not need this right here. That is advertising in the system apps that they have. So they're still at it, Xiaomi. I don't know why they're doing this, and I know people will defend them in the comments and say, no, that's because that's the only area where the software team makes any profit. And to me, that's just rubbish, okay? Other manufacturers don't put ads in their apps, their system apps, okay? Not good. You can see it right here. It's in the app. It's in the middle of it. No, not good. But this is good. This is great. Widevine level 1, cert out of the box. So Amazon Prime Video and Netflix in full HD. And we've also got camera to API level 3 support. Again, very good. So you will look in the future for one of those Google camera ports just to get perhaps better night shots. And here's our accuracy of GPS, so around 4 meters, just like flagships. It isn't a dual frequency GPS one, no, that's just reserved for the Snapdragon 855, 855 Plus flagships out there that have that. Not with Snapdragon 730G. So wireless speeds, maximum speeds you're going to look at around 326 megabits per second. Over the other side of the studio, I'm still getting good range and reception. Signal strength as well with 4G, I find is perfectly fine, good, no issues. And these are the speeds here from Orange, which is my carrier, and I'm getting these kind of speeds with my P30 Pro. So that's all good. So the storage here, the 128 gigabytes is relatively fast. I mean, this is not UFS 3 speeds, but we've got good random writes and reads here. So that's not going to bottleneck at all this phone. And here is the Antutu score. This is now version 8, remember, so the scores have gone up a little bit. You can clearly see here that yes, it's no Snapdragon 855 Plus. I think Xiaomi made an error. For the price that this sells here in Europe, 549 euros, it should have an 855 Plus in it, because look at the competitors out there like Realme selling their phones for 150 euros less with the 855 Plus. So for loudspeakers, we've just got that single downwards firing speaker that I showed you in the beginning of this review. And the sound output from it isn't the loudest I've heard from a single speaker, but it is decent, the sound from it, because it's got some bass to it as well. And you hear your ringtones, it's very loud for that. Voice calls sound good, active noise cancellation. Bluetooth range is also very good. 3.5mm headphone jack output is also great. No real complaints at all with it. Perhaps not the best I've heard from Xiaomi, but it's typical Xiaomi. It is very, very good, and great to, of course, have the 3.5mm headphone jack on this. So here's a sample of that loudspeaker at 100% volume. So for gaming performance, I find that this is Call of Duty, that it is actually really quite good, because this is the Snapdragon 730 and the G means optimized, G for gaming. And they've done a good job, because this game is running fluid and smooth on the high settings, as you can see. You'll occasionally see just a few little stutters, but overall performance is good. The same for PUBG, Shadowgun Legends as well. All of those games out there on the Play Store, they're all going to be playable in the higher settings, but some titles like Shadowgun Legends, I think you just need to lower it down a little bit, perhaps just run it on medium Now, battery life, you'd expect because of the super large capacity battery that it'd be really good, okay? So I'm seeing around about 11% to 12% lost per hour with my current use. I haven't been able to make it through a full day without plugging it in because I'm checking out photo samples and video samples, which we'll take a look at now. So I just wanted to quickly, before I show you the samples, show you the stock camera app here. So we've got different lenses we can swap over to. So this one's the macro, that was the ultra wide. This can be a little bit slow at times. And then the 108 megapixel sensor, which by default is taking 27 megapixel photos. I've noticed that the shutter rate and the shutter lag we're getting is a little bit bad. So when you go into the 108 megapixel mode and take a photo, which I'll just do now quickly, you'll see that I can't select it yet because it's still processing. Will take about 5 seconds. And you do see noticeable viewfinder lag, a lot more than other phones. So I do question whether the Snapdragon 730 was a good choice because of such a high megapixel count, and the faster image processing unit that we have on the Snapdragon 855 Plus I think would have been a little bit more ideal there. So portrait modes, L12 megapixel, shots and night shot, and pro mode here to show you what settings we've got. You can choose which lens you want to use, ISO, shutter rate, your focus, and the white balance, and then you've got also this, the 108 megapixel mode as well that you can use with the Pro mode. So overall, they are really quite a wide variety of cameras here. Pretty much everything is covered, including that 2 megapixel macro. Here are some samples, some video samples, and then my final thoughts of this phone at the end of this video. So this is our rear camera. Now once you are shooting, you cannot just swap over to the ultra wide, the 2 times or the 5 times. You need to select the one you're going to use and then stick with it. So we've got electronic image stabilization with optical. The quality I find to be not as sharp as it could be. It's a little soft, so hopefully Xiaomi can optimize this. And the audio, 96 kilobytes per second. I hope they can improve upon that. And this is now the ultra wide lens you can shoot video on, and it does have, of course, electronic image stabilization. You can see working, does a good job. Now it looks a little bit washed out, this camera. It is definitely lacking details with this lens, and that normally happens with a lot of the ultra wides when you shoot video. We'll take a look now at the 2 times and 5 times with video. So this is the 2 times, and you can see the quality not quite as good as I feel that it could be, considering this is meant to be 4K. The electronic image stabilization, however, is good with this one. And at 5 times here, you can see that it's not wonderful quality at all, quite poor. Now this is a 5 megapixel sensor, and I don't actually know if this is just digital zoom from the main sensor, because it almost looks like it, doesn't it? I mean, this quality is very poor, so I don't see myself using this one for video. So in typical Xiaomi fashion here, the front-facing camera is just 1080p, but that's not the issue. The issue here is there's no electronic image stabilization with the front-facing camera. So if you wanted to shoot vlogs, you're going to need a gimbal. This is now the super stabilization mode, 1080p, and you'll notice that the exposure here is really off. We're getting a bit of wind noise as well, but it will slowly adjust to the council building, and the clock on the top, you'll be able to see it now, the time at least. So if I run up these stairs, you see that it's a lot more steady than your typical electronic image stabilization. It does have a very aggressive crop as a result. Alright guys, so let me know in the comments, what do you think of the photos? Okay, I think it does take a very good photo, but there's clearly some optimization still needed in some areas, especially with video. Okay, when you're using the ultra steady mode, the exposure is terrible. It's overexposing in some places, and I just don't think it's got correct optimization there. Definitely not. And really, the audio quality in video, 96 kilobytes per second, that's getting old, very old. Come on, Xiaomi, update it. Your competitors out there are now using 320 kilobytes per second audio that sounds much better, higher quality microphones as well. So they really need to improve that. The video quality itself, stabilization is excellent, it's good, but it's not really that sharp. They need to improve the sharpness. Perhaps it's cropped that much, and that's why we're not, getting a native 4K out of it. I find the 5x camera to be very disappointing. It upscales to 8 megapixels, but we're also getting very poor video quality from it. The ultra-wide video quality as well is a little disappointing. We cannot swap between cameras like other manufacturers let us, like Huawei or Samsung. Speaking of Huawei, this phone does look just so similar to the P30 Pro. And I know manufacturers are all copying each other, but when you take a look at the button location, exactly the same, camera location, exactly the same, the Xiaomi text on the back is exactly where Huawei's text is. The port location, antenna lines, exactly the same. Even the buttons, it's just almost like a shameless clone there of it. But okay, we'll just ignore that, shall we? Everyone's copying everyone. But the price too in Europe, 549 euros is steep for me, considering it doesn't have an 855 Plus. They should have put that in there. And you've got the Realme X2 Pro, you've got the OnePlus 7T that sell for cheaper. And they've got 90Hz screens. Okay, so there's a lot of options out there. I feel that Xiaomi's going to have to drop the price down, especially in Europe, if they want this to sell well. It's got a really good build to it, a very nice screen. The gamma is perfect, spot on, 2.2. Now, the stuttering that I see commonly in Xiaomi's MIUI 10, especially with full screen gestures, is better, it's improved, but I can't go as far to say, sadly, that it's perfect. No, now and then I see some animations that just look a little bit laggy to me. Now I know that you can go in developer settings, you can reduce the animation times to make it faster, but I always review out of the box. We're talking average Joes, out of the box. Okay, your mother, for example, is not going to go into Android developer options, not at all there. So it is a very good phone. The battery life looks okay, not quite as good as I expected, but I'll give you some updates on that later on. I'm losing about 11 to 12%. I'm standby battery drain, so when I wasn't using it, walking around, and I just had it on in my pocket, it seemed to lose more than expected there. So I think optimization is clearly needed. This is a new phone, and Xiaomi are well known now, at least for me, to push out, I feel, rushed software. Hardware is definitely there. I love the build of this. The build quality is really good. Very versatile cameras. Just give us some optimization there, Xiaomi, and this could be a real winner when you lower that price down. It's just overpriced in Europe. So thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you did like it. If you're new, please do subscribe and enable notifications. Give the video a like as well, and I hope to catch you in the next one. See you then.